Googling still depends on local services. You're still kind of using Google for that. How has your company adopted or adapted to AI overviews being a part of search nowadays?
I will say in a company-wide base, we use AI for brainstorming, idea generation, kind of like a first pass type thing. It's not a replacement for human strategists. It gives some great ideas, and it's a tool that these human strategists can use very effectively. We hit roadblocks, mind blocks, I should say, when we're thinking about a strategy. How do we get this? Or we could get fixated on a certain strategy that's just not working. AI is great for breaking up those blocks and saying, here's 5 other strategies that could work. What do you think?
All right, Jeff, welcome to our next episode of SEO On-Air. Happy to have you here. To start out, I want to make sure that the viewers know a little bit about you, and rather than tell them about you myself, I think you know yourself better than I do. Give me a quick intro to Burk Digital and who you are.
Sure. It was a accidental business that started by doing some websites, and more people were asking for websites. We build out more and more, and then SEO came down the pike when clients started to ask for that, and we outsourced it for a while and then brought it in-house. So we focus on small businesses and nonprofits. And that's really where our bread and butter is. We have a few medium-sized businesses, but our real area of expertise would be small businesses, especially home service businesses.
What made you decide to dive into local and medium business? I know you say you kind of stumbled into it through some website development.
Yeah, so most of that came out of client requests, and it, when you first start a business, you say yes to everything that comes down the pike. You want to help people. And that's kind of how we stumbled into that. Is different requests came our way. We said yes, and we figured it out as we went. Building a website for a small business is very different from building a website for a medium to large business. Completely different process. You need different skills. Obviously different pricing. Everything is different. And so we kind of stumbled into that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You lead off with you wanted to help people. I think there's a mix of agencies, some that want to make some money and some that want to help people. I think they all might say they want to help people, but priorities might not be set in the same tier that you have them into. So tell me a little bit about how you started helping people and how you've expanded, because that's part of the growth phase of a business. Becomes necessary to focus on the financials and less about the helping people. How have you been able to balance both?
Sure. And the whole business started completely with helping people because we did not charge anything for our first several websites. I was a high school computer programming teacher, and over time, I got involved with some different nonprofits. They found out that I could possibly build a website, started building websites, not charging anything, just doing it to help people. Over time, it was taking up more and more of my time, so I figured I should at least cover my costs, started charging a little something, and I thought I should have a logo, I should have an accounting system, I should have all these other things, and so it was an accidental business starting that kind of led into that. So the difference between helping people and getting paid for it, getting paid for it came later, but the helping people was first.
How did you grow the business beyond your free customers? The one of the problems we do typically see for a new agency is getting a new customer. Largely, they establish themselves through the network that refers business to them. There's fewer agencies I find marketing themselves alone with like paid ads or SEO. Tell us a little bit about how you've been able to do that. Just growing your business, that is.
Yeah. We did very few ads ever, but especially in the early days, we did not do any ads, any advertising. We had a couple of fortunate events. We did a website for a tech company, a computer service company, and they started referring us when they were very happy with what we did, as well as there was a business coach that coached a lot of small businesses that we helped along the process, got to know very well, and he loved what we were doing and started to refer people. So it was all referrals. It doesn't hurt when we were first starting out, we were charging like $500 for a website. So it was a lot of really small businesses that had very low risk. And then obviously our prices went up from there. And so that's kind of how we got the ball rolling. We've done some ads with very little success, especially in the website industry. The SEO side of the business came along later, and that now that we have a network, we kind of use our website network to develop our SEO department.
Okay. So if you could go back to, I don't know, the beginning, and you could change one thing about how you were running your agency or redo any aspect of that early stages of your company, what would be your advice for someone else that's in that phase? What would you have changed?
It's a great question. And I think every business owner has that sense when they look back at, what if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? But there was quite a few mistakes along the way. I would say one of the things that I would change would be saying no to some people that, there's two parts to that. Done better discovery and talking with people, figuring out what their needs are, and spending a little more time in the discovery stage and identifying whether we're actually a good fit for them. Because we took on some projects where, we lost money, and it was a big headache. We sweated through it. At the very, very early days, we did hourly. Quickly understood that that's not the best compensation method, is to do everything by the hour, because the slower you are, the more money you make. And if you're really good at your job and quick, you make less money. And everybody wants to know what that hourly rate is, and that's not what the discussion is about. So we switched to package pricing, and there's some clients that were just not a great fit for our company. Their expectation was, hey, you guys are coding wizards, so you can make anything happen, and that's all included in the price, right? And I did not have clear enough boundaries around what is included in which package, and they just assumed everything would be included, and it created a lot of stress in our business early on. So I think clear package boundaries, as well as just telling some clients, you know what, I don't think we're the best fit for you for what you're looking for. Here's another company that could probably help you out better.
So you were teaching in high school, you said, right?
Teaching in high school, yeah.
Made some free websites, so you knew the tech aspect of it. You didn't necessarily have the sales experience that a lot of people have, or even necessarily the pure fulfillment from like a history of working in marketing agencies. There's a level of imposter syndrome that some agency owners run into. How did you handle that?
Absolutely. So yeah, the imposter syndrome was strong with this one. There was pros and cons to not having worked in an agency before. Where we're different is it allowed me to really look at the process and say, what actually adds value to the client? There was nothing that I was saying, well, we're just doing this because that's what we did back at my old company. I was able to take a fresh look at it and learn, current methods and try to eliminate any type of waste in the process so that our pricing was very, very competitive. The downside of that is I had to learn everything. And a lot of it came from me saying, yes, we can help you out with that, when I really didn't know how I was going to help them out with it. And I had to go out and research, made mistakes, got a lot of time wrapped up in projects that paid very little because I didn't know how long this was going to take. I had a rough idea. And through that, the imposter syndrome was very strong because I was saying, yes, I can do that when I didn't have a clear plan in my mind how. I learned a lot through that process, but yes, I had no agency experience. As far as sales experience, I would have had some sales experience, just in a completely different industry in the automotive.
I was curious when you mentioned the discovery phase. That was like, that's a sales. You learned it through trial and error. Typically, you found out you didn't ask the right questions. So you had some experience in that before moving into running your own agency.
Yeah, I did. It wasn't in the same industry, and so I had to learn a lot. But I edited my agreement so many times. I have no idea how many times I went in there. I'm like, oh, I learned from this experience. I got to put a parameter around there that this is not included.
Yeah. I had to tell them what you wouldn't do because they assumed everything, right?
Yep. They assumed, well, you said you would do the website. This is the website.
So you have that experience. You've started the agency. You're starting to generate some revenue for your customers, but also for yourself. So you're starting to feel some success. Each customer is, I assume, especially at local customers, like there's some local aspect of SEO, but they're in completely different industries, doing a wide variety of things. How were you able to adopt strategies or build strategies that worked for so many different local customers?
So that's another great question. I would say the businesses were small enough. So I am from a relatively conservative, traditional area. And a lot of the businesses were small enough that they were doing nothing. So we were able to have great success because they were doing nothing. And now there's some standard SEO strategies that just work for pretty much every business. And then there is the tailored aspect. So early on, it was a lot more generalist type fulfillment that we were doing. Claiming the Google business listing and, looking at keyword research and putting those keywords in key places. I don't need to preach to you about SEO, how general SEO is. But then as time went on, the business size the average business size of new clients began to grow. And we realized we really need to be doing better with the whole strategy, white glove type approach where we sit down, we discuss their business goals, who they're targeting, and we really enhanced our SEO our programs to include that, where we can sit down and have a tailor-made approach, a tailor-made strategy for each client. So that obviously takes quite a bit of time. It also takes quite a bit of knowledge, and we grew in those two areas. We raised our prices.
I was going to say, is it safe to assume that's when your prices went up as well, right?
Yeah, because you have to pay a knowledgeable person a lot of money in SEO. It's somebody who really knows what they're doing is not cheap. And it takes a lot of time to research a business and look at what you recommend their target market is. And then the fulfillment comes on the back end of that, of actually making that strategy a reality.
Okay, so I think that leads me into one of the questions that I thought would be valuable for us is there is a level of distrust in marketing agencies. Especially with the small local customers, like the local roofers, landscapers, stuff like that. They've spoken to so many agencies. They've all presented their options, maybe even sold them packages that were more in line with, like you mentioned, the local services. It's almost like softwares are able to list them in their local map packs and things now. So they're just being potentially resold services without really owning a lot of the strategy. And so there's this distrust that are you just giving me the same thing everyone else gave me, or are you giving me an actual service? How have you been able to differentiate yourself from agencies that are just selling fulfillment into offering a full service? How are you different there?
And that is the $1 million question. How does an SEO company do that? That is really, really tough with SEO because the average small business owner does not understand what all these terms mean. They don't know what they're getting. They're getting calls, probably almost every day from another SEO company saying, we noticed errors on your website. We can fix it. We can really improve your SEO. And so they're just confused. And that mistrust really breeds because then a lot of those companies they just try to throw something into a software and that's it. You mentioned differentiator. How do we differentiate ourselves? So one of our goals is to make the SEO buying experience very simple as possible in SEO. That's a tall order. But make the buying process simple and allow each client to truly understand what they're getting for their monthly spend. Help them to understand that this is not a guaranteed results. A lot of people that call in, and I'll say the scammy SEO companies, guarantee so many leads,
keyword rankings,
without knowing what industry they're in, what competition they're going up against, what their current ranking is, all of that. You can't really guarantee results. But what we do is we look at it and we really spend some time doing some of that research and saying, realistically, here's where we could get you. And then we try to undersell and overperform.
So did your team do that research as part of the sales process? Like you've actually put that labor and time into understanding the customer before you try to collect on it?
Yeah. So we have a discovery meeting before any client pays us any money, where we sit down with them either virtually or in our office if it's a local client, and we go over where they're currently at, what we would do for them in the different packages, and what results that we expect that would give. We don't make guarantees because guarantees are tough in SEO unless you did that research, which a lot of these companies just calling them up out of the blue. They didn't do that research. They don't know what, they're just throwing out a guarantee that has no backing. And so that's kind of how we are different, where we try to really educate to allow the client to feel some trust.
Like the high school background has got to be playing a role in this right now.
Possibly. Yeah, the education piece of that, because a client with unmet expectations is terrible for business. You may have come through for them. You may have done great fulfillment. You may have done great work for the price that they're paying, but if their expectations are not aligned, they're still going to be upset. No matter how much work you put in there, if they have unrealistic expectations. And so those proper alignments of expectations is a big part of having a successful interaction with as an agency to a client. It lets them feeling understood. They knew this is going to be SEO is a long play. You're building a relationship here. And so it's a long-term thing. They know that going into it. They know they are planning on investing in the long term. It's not just somebody saying, hey, for $100 a month, I'll throw you in this SEO software and it will give you all these results.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
I feel like that cannot be understated, is how complicated the expectation alignment actually is in the digital agency realm. You specifically talk about the SEO like terminology and them not understanding different, schema and other things you could bring up that sound like a foreign language to them. That is probably the biggest differentiator between success on agencies, is whether or not they can break it down and set the right expectations. So, and talking about the longevity of customers, right? Like having them for a customer for 3 months or for 5 years because they understood what you were doing and how you were bringing it out.
Yeah.
I don't know the right question to ask there, other than, can you expand how your agency is able to communicate those expectations to clarify complex strategies in digital marketing into something that's tangible for your customer?
And that is tough to do. And it's something we're continuing to evaluate and adjust and evolve over time, is how do we take these very complex, technical, nerdy type like things that we do and make a client say, oh, like they're actually doing work. They're actually getting things done and it's actually making a difference. That's something we're continually working on to get better and better at. And there are times when I believe we talk clients out of signing up for an SEO package with us. So I mentioned earlier that we're in a very traditional area. It's a little more rural. It's Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Amish country. And a lot of our clients are Amish, actually, believe it or not. But there's a reputation factor here. We're not in a big metropolitan area where we can just find a new customer very easily. It's very much reputation based. And so I would much rather have someone never sign up with us than sign up with us for 6 months or a year and then say, they did nothing for me. And so I say that to say, I don't want a new client if we can't deliver for them. Every time I send an invoice, I want to feel like they had a positive return on investment. They're going to, or they did have a positive return on investment. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think it does. I think that's an interesting perspective. The value of a customer and the value of it from like a word of mouth referral option for agencies, which I've already touched on being 95 maybe percent. I'm throwing out a number that I think it is. 95% of the agencies on here are driving their business through word of mouth referral. So you're essentially, early on, you said that you charged too little, but you built a brand for yourself, and then you had to expand the service. And you also mentioned, I think specifically, that the biggest mistake was maybe taking on some customers that you shouldn't have taken on. Some of them had too high of expectations for your product, but that still aligns with exactly like you said, is making sure that they have clear expectations, maybe not too much, not too little. You're trying to make sure they understand exactly what to expect, really connecting the dots between the value of the service and the cost of the service.
There were a few clients that kind of left us saying, it wasn't a completely positive experience. And those we have learned from those experiences that the expectations were not aligned going in, where we did not do our job, and in setting proper expectations, completely understanding what they needed. And and just working on that a little bit better. And also communication is also key. Communication is key in any relationship, whether it's marriage or, client agency relationship. Like, there's times when we could have communicated better what we were doing, and people assume that if they don't hear anything from you, you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so there were a few clients that walked away from us, and that's not an experience. I want to do everything in my power to keep that from happening. If they're not a good fit, let's figure that out before we ever sign any type of paperwork or send them an invoice.
I think that there's like an expectation that you can't keep every customer happy, right? There's a little bit of that bleed out that happens even when you're trying or even doing your best, giving the best solution. The communication gap between people still has flaws, right? I'll share a quick story for my own sake. I was a manager at a Best Buy, and a lady had come in. She had seen a sale online that was an online only deal, and she came in to buy it, but there was a different sale in store than what was happening online. There was a lot of confusion, and I came in as a manager to figure out what we were going to do to try to get this taken care of. And I asked her a question that I thought was fair, which was like, what do you want me to do? And I don't know if my tone was wrong or if she heard it wrong, because she heard, well, what do you want me to do? And put everything down and walked straight out of the store and told like my employee that I shouldn't be the manager here and that they should be the manager. And I looked at my employee and I was like, what just happened? Even with the best of intent and even being willing to give her that price, when I tried to make sure I understood the deal, it just didn't work out. And I imagine what I think a service to be far more complex than a camera, which would be digital marketing. There's probably some stories like that in your pocket. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that's very fair. There's just sometimes when it's like, I'm not sure what that client really wanted from us. But that is rare, relatively rare. Like, so for example, our client churn rate year over year is right around 1%. So it's a very, very low client churn rate. But with that, we lose deals on the beginning because we almost look at ways to not talk them out of our services, because we do believe in our services, but like, we want to make sure they have a good experience, because that's a lot less painful, especially in the referral driven market that we're in right now. They have a lot of options when it comes to websites and SEO.
Have you gotten referrals from people that you turned away?
That's a great question. I have to think back on that.
Just imagining that the transparency that you're already communicating with someone has got to establish a level of trust for you across the community. That's a differentiator, like we talked about. I can't think of an example, but I'm pretty sure we did. I know there were some clients where they wanted multiple websites, and we said, on this, we did your first website, but on this one, I don't think we're the best fit. And they still referred us. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example of knowing what you're great at and what you shouldn't be fulfilling for the customer just because of the ROI. So that, I kind of have danced around this question, but it's one of the questions we intentionally ask on the podcast for the viewers is, what's the first big win that made you feel like your agency was really working? And I like that you just mentioned that you're confident in your product. When did you build that confidence? When did you really decide that, like, wow, we're good at this?
That's a great question. So I would say that's different from our website department and our SEO department. Those happened at different times. We were confident in websites before we were confident in SEO. But I would say once there was some larger businesses that just were like, you guys were a fourth of the price of the next closest, and it's a high performing website. Like they were just like, why? Like, why? How can you do it so much cheaper than these other guys? But yet still, that felt really good. After we went through the process, they were just very happy with it. And the one was that technology company that I mentioned, computer, like they were a larger company. I don't know how many employees they have, maybe 50, but they started referring us like crazy. And that just felt really good and confidence boosting. Like, this is a tech company that knows security, knows performance, knows optimizations. They know where that standard should be set. And they said, you guys did an awesome job.
So when you put the gloves on at that point and you're out ready to fight, you're like, we are who we say we are and we can do this. I love that moment for agencies where you're confidently going after customers knowing that that's who you are. So there's an aspect of the market that's changing so rapidly, moving into like the AI conversation here. In local, I've kind of been hearing that there's less drastic change, that there's still a lot of like the map packs still drive a lot of traffic. Googling still depends on local services. You're still kind of using Google for that. How has your company adopted or adapted to AI overviews being a part of search nowadays?
Yeah, so that's the question that AI gets thrown around in a lot of discussions surrounding SEO right now. I will say in a company-wide base, we use AI for brainstorming, idea generation, kind of like a first pass type thing. It's not a replacement for human strategists. It gives some great ideas in it, and it's a tool that these human strategists can use very effectively, and we use it quite a bit. But we do want a human looking over that, who knows what's going on and saying, this is good, this is not the best. So as far as directly with SEO, we do, AI is built into our SEO software and platforms pretty much across the board. And it is used pretty heavily, but we are not just throw your business into a software and the software takes care of everything. We have, as I mentioned earlier, one of our goals is to really help the client understand what is going on and what we're doing for them and what we recommend, the actions that they take, not just the software recommends this. Software is great for idea generation, and like we as humans, we hit roadblocks, mind blocks, I should say, when we're thinking about a strategy. How do we get this? Or we could get fixated on a certain strategy that's just not working. AI is great for breaking up those blocks and saying, here's 5 other strategies that could work. What do you think? And that's where we use AI is to break up those where our human limitations can really.
The customers are getting completely covered in AI ads across every social platform. Everything's claiming AI is, especially in marketing, like it's going to automate every aspect of everything you do, including your paid ads and social media and everything else. How have you been able to navigate those conversations with customers? Because what we've heard from a lot of agencies is that SEO is traditional SEO is still probably, I think the percentage that's being regularly used now is about 80% of AI overviews. So like we really shouldn't change about 80% of what we do right now in your fulfillment to be part of those. How have you navigated that conversation with your customers, knowing that traditional SEO is still very much a part of the algorithm and they are just seeing that they need to adopt a new strategy?
Yeah, that's a tough conversation. Like it's a deep conversation. I could spend almost all day on AI and SEO. But basically, I try to help them understand that AI is a powerful tool. It is not a human replacer. So, for example, if let's say AI being used in the legal field, AI is being used pretty heavily in that to generate some legal documents. But depending on the situation, it's just a tool. You really should have your attorney looking over, a human looking over. So the AI overview does require some work there, some additional work, but the traditional stuff still needs to be done.
So have your customers,
how I explain it.
Yeah, I know. Have your customers accepted that? I think is even the deeper question, because I do think their expectations and your fulfillment and that alignment still are a complicated aspect of today's marketing realm, where they're being inundated, I think is the right word, just kind of swamped with more AI services. The conversation is really, how do you let them know that things still, I guess the tool is the aspect of that. Like, the AI is the tool for us to fulfill the work even better for you, but it's not the solution.
Right. And that's I do explain that, AI does bring down our price of fulfillment typically, because it gives us a good starting point. So yes, we utilize it. Yes, it is a great tool. So whether they accept that, I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question, because clients, like you said, AI is all over the place. A company throws in, AI into their branding, all of a sudden their value on Wall Street jumps. Like, everybody's claiming AI, everybody's talking about it. We are not at a place yet where it is a set it and forget it, that there's a set it and forget it AI tool that works really well. You call into a business, if it's an AI answering the phone, any type of business, you automatically, it's not as great service as a human person that can say, yes, I can help you out with that. I can transfer you to the correct caller. If it's an AI bot,
it may be good at it, but I'm still a little bit wishing I was talking to a human.
I mean, it's getting better and better, but it all depends on the level of service you want. Yes, it's expensive to pay a human. Yes, it takes resources, it takes time, it takes all this stuff to have a human. But if you want a high level of customer service, AI is just not going to cut it. If that's all what you're using. Sure, you can use AI to kind of direct calls to humans, but it's not at the place. I mean, there's going to be probably people listening to this that work for companies that do AI chatbots and all of this. And that's fine. Keep working on your product. I think it's really cool. I'm not anti-AI by any stretch, but it depends on your level of service. If I call in to AT&T and I get an AI recording, they're trying to save money. I know they're kind of cheaping it's just not as great friendly service.
Yeah, it lacks the human touch. That there's definitely an aspect of that I understand. So, shamelessly, let's just give Burk Digital a plug here. What is the best part about working with Burk Digital? Excuse me. I'm going to rephrase that to make sure we get that correctly. What is the best part of working with Burk Digital?
From a client perspective, or
if I'm a customer and I want to come and I'm looking for a digital marketing agency in Pennsylvania and way out by the Amish, why would I pick Burk Digital?
We're not going to sell you something that we don't have full confidence is going to improve, be worth it. We just won't do that.
That's almost enough said.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that trust factor. Every time a client calls in, if it's a small business looking for a website, if they're very small, I give them free options of Google sites. Hey, there's other options out there other than us. There's some larger agencies in our area that I say, if you want to spend a lot of money, they're your go-to. We fit here. We know where we fit. We're not going to try to sell you something that's not going to be high performing for you. And so hopefully that is the reason.
Well, next time we have you on, we'll have to find out who that agency is and get the two of you on this call together, and you guys
there you go
collaborate and share.
Yeah.
Based on who's better at what service, we can share opportunities. We found that to be an amazing thing, that there's definitely enough for everyone. The agencies that have joined the podcast, we enjoy that there's opportunities for them to collaborate instead of just compete.
And they refer a lot of work to us too, because they know where they fit. We know where we fit. companies who want to spend a lot of money, they work a lot better for them. Companies who want to have the biggest impact for a relatively small amount of money, talk to us. Like, we try to give big impact for affordable prices.
How large is your team, Bert or Jeff?
We have 5 in the US, 5 in the Philippines. So all our strategy, communication, account management all happens with our US team. And then some of our fulfillment and development aspects happen with our full-time employees in the Philippines.
So you're reducing your fulfillment costs, but still trying to maintain a level of quality, culturally understood engagement from your teams in the US.
And we don't hide that from any of our clients.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing too. We've had enough agencies on to know that lots of labor for fulfillment is outsourced overseas, including my company, Stand Ventures. We're a fulfillment team overseas. We know that that's part of competing in today's marketing world. If all your labor's in the US, you're potentially overcharging for work that can be done significantly cheaper overseas. But the quality of that engagement and the strategy and the context of the conversations with your customer have to be maintained in the US, I think, for the best possible service.
We flipped too far on both sides of the spectrum, I believe, and have kind of come to a very good understanding. Like, initially, we were all US based, weren't making any money, and we had to charge much higher prices, and it just didn't work the best. And then we went a little too far overseas, where we felt like our customer service took a hit, where we weren't offering that top level service that we wanted to. And so we kind of enlarged our US side, and now I feel like we have a good balance.
That's awesome. I think that's super interesting. That's the side of the industry that I've spent so much time in now, understanding white label aspect versus just building it all out in the United States. I really appreciate that part of the conversation. I think more agencies are finding it. There's a lot of coaches now on like LinkedIn that will teach you how to run an agency, but I still think they lean too heavily into the outsourced and not enough into like, you still have to deliver an amazing experience for someone to want to trust you with their budget. That's what you've established at Burk Digital, is that trust.
That's what we're gunning for. There have been several projects where we feel like we lost money, but we delivered a quality product that met the client's expectations. We just said in the future, we're going to manage those expectations better.
I think that's something I've heard from a lot of smaller agencies, is they took on projects and maybe they still delivered what they said they delivered regardless of the cost to them, because their brand, like, that's who they wanted to be when they left a different agency to start their own. Deliver more. They deliver that experience that, like, I think you said early on, that's just helping people. Like, that's what you really wanted to do when you started the agency. So I love it. Well, Jeff, it's been awesome to have you on. This is a great podcast. We had some guests not make it to this, and it was better that I had a chance to talk to just you and have you talk a little bit more about Burk Digital. I appreciate you being here, and this has been another episode of SEO On Air. Thank you.